Hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Creating New Custom Listing Reports Inside Paragon. My name is Gary Arnett, and I am your trainer. This topic is an advanced Paragon function. During this webinar, we're going to cover the following topics: how to customize an existing property report, and this is a very simple process. I'm going to show you how to copy an existing property report. And now that it is your own property report, I'm going to show you how you can go in and customize this new property report. I'm going to show you how you can create a brand new property report using a template inside Paragon. I'm also going to show you how to create your own custom report starting with a blank page. Now, some of the benefits of using Paragon's report creation tool is that you can create exactly the report you want to give your clients. You can create it just for you. You can design it with only you having access to the report. And during that time that you only have access to it, you can use real listing data. You can print it out or you can email it to peers for their review. And then if you would like, when the report is ready, you can share it with others in your office. You can use an existing report and brand it or tweak it to fit your needs. You can design a report, a unique report for you using a Paragon template, or you can design your unique report from a blank page inside Paragon. Now, the nice thing about having your own report is that you can make sure that all the details you want in the listing report for your client are present. You can add important details like fields, features, pictures, map, and clickable icons. Now, inside your property report, you can have clickable icons like these that give you, the agent, a lot of great information about the listing inside Paragon. However, when you email that report out as a hyperlinked email, only the M and the D typically go out. The M stands for map, and the D stands for disclosures or associated documents. And if the D goes out, it means it's only for public reports. If there are any reports that have been marked private inside those associated documents or disclosures, they would not go out. It's only those that are marked as public for those documents. As you're creating the report, whether you're creating it brand new or you're tweaking it for your own branding, you are in complete control of the color scheme. So it can match your agent color scheme, your office logo color scheme. That way there is continuity and consistency in the branding as you present yourself to the public and more specifically to your clients. You can make it emailable, and if you would like, you can make it defaultable, meaning when you're on a spreadsheet and you tap on the ML number with your finger if you're using a tablet, or double click on the row, it could be your secondary default view for you to look at. Now, this webinar uses a demo database. The fields and their names may be different than what you have inside your Paragon system, and that is okay. Although the labels and the data may be different, the functionality I'm going to show you is exactly the same between your different Paragon systems. Today, I want to increase your Paragon skills relating to creating Paragon property reports. So let's go take a look at creating property reports inside Paragon. I have done a search inside Paragon, and I've come up with these properties as my results. Moving away from the spreadsheet or the grid, I want to go to a particular property report. So by moving to the Reports button in the upper right-hand corner, I do a left mouse click, and notice how a list of reports are now displayed. As I scroll on down, notice that some of the reports have an M next to it. That means it's available MLS-wide, Paragon-wide. Some of them have an O. That means it's available within the office. Some of them have an A. That means those are for you, the agent. And some of them are board-specific. Well, the report I want to utilize is Custom Brochure number 2. I'm going to do a left mouse click on it. And as I do that, notice how the report is now being displayed. And notice in the report it says click on the Customize button above for this listing to enter your own custom data. As I scroll on down, I can see there's a lot of space here that I may want to utilize, adding additional information for this report. So let me just move back up to the top. And whether I'm at the top or the bottom, I can always hover over the Customize button, move down to Fields, and with the left mouse click, I can open up this tool. And as I open it up, I want you to notice the legend at the very top. It lets you know that if there are sections that are white, like where it says Customize on the Customize button above, or in this box over here on the right-hand side underneath Property Features, those are customizable. However, the gray box for Property Features, notice that it is non-customizable according to the legend at the top of the page. As I move on down, I can see that I have additional boxes that I can customize in. And then at the very bottom, I can put in my own custom address information. Let me come back up to the top where I have my feature information, and I'm going to do just a double left click to open this up. As I do a double left mouse click, notice how my customizing tool opens up. This is exactly the same tool that we utilize to customize our search criteria screens, property reports, and spreadsheets and grids. Also, when you go to select property reports to print or email, it's exactly the same tool. Meaning, what's available to you is on the left-hand side. Using the function buttons in the center, you can add to the right, or you can move fields from the right and remove them to the left. You can remove all from the right and move them to the left. And once they're on the right-hand side, by selecting a particular field, you can move it up or move it down. So let me come in. I'm going to come over and click on the pound sign, that number sign at the top. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of my fields in numeric order. And this is the new number field. As I scroll on down, I'm going to move down to where in the code area, I now have just letters. As an example, here we go. Here you can see where I have A, B, C, and all these different letters here. These are the feature categories. I prefer using feature categories because any value that would have been selected for air conditioning would be displayed. If I move down below just the plain letters, I got like A1, A2, A3. If I use these, then only that specific value would be displayed. And so in order to make my design of my report easier, I'm going to come through and just choose those items I'm looking for. Over on the right-hand side, notice that some of these values have already been selected. So I've got air conditioning, construction, garage type is already there. However, I don't have included in the kitchen, the land use. Let me just scroll on down. I'm going to come through and choose a lot of these different fields. Now, there may be some of these features that I'm not going to select. Maybe it's the documents on file. Having made those selections, I click on Add, and notice how they've been all added to the right-hand side. I'm going to go ahead and click on Save, and by doing that, notice how that is now customized this particular container. Now, one of the nice things about features is that if, let's say, for example, under construction, nothing was entered, it would move up, and then we'd then see whatever's displayed or been entered in by the listing agent for garage types. And this is how you can come in and customize. But just be aware that on features, if there are no values for that particular feature, it's kind of moved to the back. It doesn't take up any space, and other feature categories move up in order to fill in this entire area. However, if you're actually looking at fields like MLS number or address, price, bedrooms, baths, that will always take up space whether there's a value or not. So if I wanted to, I could, over here on the left-hand side, do a double click. When it comes to finding fields you want to add to this particular field preference section, I can use my find field, type in what I'm looking for, and I do want to put in about the pool. I also want to come in and put in about the county because in this particular community, county is very important. So again, I can add whatever values I'm looking for. Maybe it's age. I've got that, and I also want to add level. So with that in place, I've got that information in. I can now click on Save. And by clicking on Save, Paragon's now going to display those fields that are there. Notice how level is right on the bottom. I want to caution you because it is possible to put in more fields into this container than could be displayed. And once I've done my customizing of my fields here, I can then move on to other areas like where I have subdivision, school district, and the different grades. Let me come back up to the top. Notice where it says click on the Customize button above. Well, that is just a text field, and I can, if I want, take that information out, and I could give this one a name. Maybe this is going to be my open house report I want to use. Maybe I'm going to call this my open house flyer. And then down below, I may want to put in some additional information. So what I'm using is I'm just using my backspace key, taking out the information, and typing in the characters I want to have in this particular area. So having typed in whatever free-form text I want, I can now save it. I want to caution you that this information here is a part of a template. And because it's part of a template, Regardless of what property you're displaying in it, it's going to have this same information here. Let me go ahead and click on Save and Close. And by doing that, the report is going to be saved and it's updated. Notice how it says Open House Flyer. This could be your new home. As we scroll on down, notice how we have filled in this area here for the different amenities. Continuing on down, notice I now have level. And in this case, notice how level is still being displayed. So I could have added one more field potentially to this right-hand or left-hand side area and have it displayed. Now I do have a gap here, and I could have come in and put in some custom contact information. Adding this information here would have been exactly the same process that I went through by when I added Open House Flyer. This could be your new home. And so that is how you would do a simple customization of a property report. Having done this quick customization of this report, I realized that there's a lot of good things about it, but maybe I want to make it more specific to how I want to use this report. So I can come in and copy this particular report and make it uniquely mine. To do that, I'm going to come up to Preferences. I'm going to move down to where it says Agent Views. By creating it in or copying views to Agent Views, it then becomes uniquely mine. I can create regular property reports. I could create open house and tour property reports. I could even create my own Client Connect property reports. But let me just go ahead and work with my views. And so with a left mouse click, I'm going to go in and I'm going to see the property reports that I've already created. Well, what I want to do is I want to copy a view. So by using my toolbar, I'm going to click on Copy View with a left mouse click. With my double mouse click, I now have this table with a drop-down box. I'm going to come down to MLS Views. By working with MLS Views, I'm going to scroll down and notice down below there are 4 pages with up to 25 property reports on a page. I'm just going to use the drop-down. I'm going to select 100. That way all of these property reports are now in one list. So with all of my properties in a single list, I'm going to scroll down to find the report that I was using before. Custom Brochure number 2. I'm going to slide on across and click on the Copy button with a left mouse click on the right-hand side of the screen. As I do that, using this tool, I'm going to come in and activate the report. I'm going to leave it emailable. And because I'm copying an existing report, I do not want to change any of the design elements, meaning I don't want to add headers or footers. I don't want to change the number of listings across or vertical. I do want to make it defaultable. That way it becomes an optional double-click secondary report for me when I'm on a spreadsheet. And my margins I want to leave exactly the same. As I look at the very bottom of the report, these are the different property classes this report has already been created in. I'm going to go ahead and just copy them over as they are. That way, if I do move into these other niche markets, it's already there ready for me to work with. Now, one thing I want to point out too is I want to change this name a little bit. That way, this name will be displayed in such a way as I realize that that is Gary's report, not the regular MLS or board report. I'm going to call it Gary. That way, it's consistent with my naming convention I have for my other reports. And with this set up, I'm going to click on Save. And with a left mouse click clicking on Save, this report has now been created. And notice it's here available for me to edit or customize. By clicking on the name or by clicking on Edit, I go into the Design tool where I can then customize the report. Notice where it says Settings. By clicking on Settings with the left mouse click, I come back into that same place I was just a minute ago, but notice I no longer have the option to select the other property classes. So if I happen to have a typo in my name, whatever, I could come in and change it. If I had not made it defaultable or emailable, maybe I hadn't activated it, I can always come in and change these settings. Let me go ahead and cancel that. I'm going to come back over and do a left mouse click on the name of the report, Gary Custom Brochure 2. As I do that, notice how the report is loading up. I now have complete control of this report and nothing is grayed out for me. Let me give you my first tip and trick. Over at the bottom left, it says Grid and Default Font and Style. Go ahead and do a left mouse click on that and uncheck the box. By unchecking the box, the report elements are no longer going to try to jump to the upper left-hand corner of the different grids that are all over this page. Although we can't see it right now, there's little grids or cells or graph paper like squares that are there, and it's based on this X and Y axes. If I want to make those grids smaller, I can go ahead and change the X and Y axes amount. And one line here, notice I could change the default font and size, whether it's a bold, italicized, underline. If the information is too long, I can put in the dot, 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 ellipsis. I can even crop the fields, and I can even make them so that they wrap around. And I have it for my data font, which is the label for the data, and then I have for the data itself. These items can be the same or different. It's up to you. And since I basically like the layout of this report, let me come in and show you a couple things I like to do. When it comes to the listing image, I'm going to click on it and notice this orange back highlight around the edge. We have the spinner. The spinner gives you that arrows on the bottom of the picture where you can step through each of the different pictures, either moving to the right or to the left. One thing I like to do is I like to add the label. Because Paragon allows you to have a label and description, I activate that label and description on a report by report basis, class by class, picture by picture basis. And so with that now selected, now as I come out and show this to my clients, they're going to have the ability to step through each of the pictures. And if there's a label saying master bedroom or bathroom or formal living room, whatever, they're going to see that. And if there's any descriptions about that particular room or picture, it will also display with the picture. I also like to have my listing images centered up. That way, if someone has taken a portrait shot down the hallway or into the bathroom, there's equal space on the left and right hand side of the picture instead of being it all skewed over to the left hand side, providing an abnormal gap to the right of that picture before the next picture. Now let me show you something else. Notice how this picture has a particular size to it. I can, if I want, make it larger. If I want to have the largest picture available, by grabbing that right-hand corner with the left mouse click and hold, I can pull it out to the next size up. Notice I could go to a larger size, and these are jumps that are predetermined for the resolution inside Paragon for the pictures. I'm going to take it to this size, but notice how it puts the picture right next to my field preference section. A field preference section is the customizing tool that we used just a minute ago, where we double-clicked in the box and we're able to add or remove fields. Now in this particular case, I want to make this column a little bit narrower, and with a left mouse click, I can then drag it over. If I had not unchecked that snap to grid, as I move this over, if I didn't hit exactly at one of the corners of the little squares on the grid paper or graph paper, then that upper left-hand corner would have jumped to the nearest corner. And so by moving this over a little bit, I've now been able to come in and give myself some space in between my picture. Also notice how my picture is a little bit high there. I'm going to move it down. And I'm also going to take my property feature item and move it down a little bit also. I'm going to line it up. I want both of these to be the same height. And notice the T, that means from the top. This is 89 dots or pixels down from the top. That's an 87. I'm going to just do a backspace and make that 89. And now those are going to line up together. When you're doing and creating property reports, white space is very important for readability of the report. Now let me show you another trick. As I click on the field preference section, notice how it looks like the lettering here is just normal. If the lettering appears normal, it means the data is bold. And for me, the look and feel I want is I want the label to be bold. So I'm going to go ahead and select, and notice how it's now bold. With the label being bold, it means the data will be normal. Now, another thing I want to point out to you is that field preference sections, you can overflow it. In other words, put in more fields than it can possibly hold. So like I did just a minute ago, let me click on the pound sign, put my fields all in numeric value order, and let me come down to where I get the A, B, and C. Now, in some of your systems, you have a lot of features. You may have A, B, A, C. That's okay. I'm just going to come through and grab those different fields that I'm looking for. I want to make sure I'm not duplicating. So let me come over and start selecting some of these items. So just by doing a checkbox selection, I'm doing a left mouse click. I've now selected all the values I want. I'm going to click on Add. By clicking on Add, they've all been added to the right-hand side. I'm going to click on Save. Now, having clicked on Save, I want to show you something else. Up here where it says column, notice it says Align. And with it aligned, it's going to say Let's find what is the longest label, like included kitchen features, and we're going to draw a vertical line from top to bottom in this box. And to the right of that line is where the data would start. Now, when it comes to the features, because people could select a lot of features for each of these different feature categories, I'm going to change the alignment to free flow. And by choosing free flow, at the end of condition to COND, we're going to give a gap of about 2 to 4 pixels, and then your data would start. And so by doing this, notice how you're going to have this ebb and flow going through as you're working with this. And by doing that, you're actually going to find you're going to have more information that can be displayed when it comes to your features in this particular area. Let me move down to where I have my other details like MLS number and all. Now on this one here, having it aligned makes a lot of sense to me. But again, you can add things to this by just simply double clicking. And as you double click, we can again come through and find the different fields you're looking for, like level. Select it, maybe age. I wanted to have county there. So again, I can just add these fields like I did before. So by utilizing the design that's already been created for you, it's very easy to come in and quickly add what you're looking for. Now, on a lot of these items, you may want to use a short label. Now, this is just for fields. If it's the feature categories, you want to use the long name or not make any selections here. Because using the short label, like I'm selecting right now on features, you then just get A, B, C, D, like we had a minute ago. But with this, by choosing the short label, see what's in the code column? That's what would be displayed for this. Now, in a lot of cases, we're not seeing any changes, but in some cases, you may see a significant difference in the length of the label using code versus the long label under name. By clicking on Save, that's now been updated. And I also want to make my labels bold, just like I did with features. Now, if I want to, hold down my Control key. With a left mouse click in the subdivision box, I can select it. Now I have 2 boxes selected. And by coming up to where it says B for bold, I can now make those bold. I can make it italicized, underlined. The ellipsis, if the information's too long, I can crop the field, and I can have, like with remarks, so that the line wraps around. Now let me show you a couple other things. Notice the T means for top. It means that's that many pixels from the top. The L means from the left. The W means the width, and everything is focused off of this upper left-hand corner. So how far down from the top is that upper left-hand corner, and how far from the left is that upper left-hand corner? And with the upper left-hand corner fixed in place, we can now say how wide do we want this field and how tall do we want it, how high do we want it. So we can come in and set up the dimensions for that particular area. By clicking on Save, I've now come in and customized this report, giving me these different details. Now, when it comes to this area right here, I can, if I want, make a little change. I could call this, as we did just a minute ago, Open House, but notice I have my text field right up here. I'm just going to use my backspace and delete all of that. Please do not highlight with your mouse with a sustained left mouse click and hit delete. The delete button on your keyboard will delete this particular element from your report. You don't want to do that. But I could, if I want, come in again and put in, if I wanted, Open House. Maybe I just want to call it Open House. Again, I can give this custom name as I was doing before. I'm going to go ahead and save my work. Periodically, I like to save my work because that's just a smart thing to do. Because every so often you may make a mistake, and if you do make a mistake, it might be nice to be able to go back to your last save point and build back from there rather than having to start all from scratch. Now down here, when it comes to my information here, I'm just going to do a left mouse click while I'm holding the control button, and I'm going to hit the trash can. I want to delete those. The reason I want to delete those is I want to come over into miscellaneous elements, and partway down I have an item called Fields Preference Section. I'm going to bring that on, and with just a left mouse click, I'm going to make that wider. Up at the top, I'm going to do my customizing to center up this text information. And because I'm going to put my contact information here, I'm actually going to come over and make that a little bit larger. And in this case, I'm not going to show the labels, so I'm going to leave it as it is. I'm going to leave my labels normal, so my data, in other words, my contact information, is bold. And by double clicking, I come into my customizing tool. In the upper left-hand corner in the find, I'm going to type in my. I'm now going to find my name. I'm going to add it. I want to add my phone number. That may have been a little higher here. Let me find my phone number. There it is. There's my phone number. I also want to put in my email address and my web address. Now for the web address, it must be inside my agent record to display. I also want to come down, I want to get my office information. If you can't see the whole name, you can by hovering over the right-hand side, left mouse click, drag and drop. We can now see the whole name. I'm going to come in and choose my office name. I also want my office address, so I'm going to choose address 1, city, state, and zip. I'm going to add that also. Be aware that there is a mailing address, and that may not be the same as your street address. I also want to put in the selected office phone number. So maybe I want to choose phone number 1, or just regular phone number, either way. Now, because all of these are self-evident of what they are just by looking at the data, I'm going to, oops, wrong item. I want to have no label. So let me come through and choose no label. That way I'm going to use most of the room for just my information. Had I used a label, it would then say my info 9 dash agent name space Gary Arnett. And then it would also have this other information. And to me, that's not very elegant for my report design. So I'm going to choose no label and I click on save. As I do that, notice that 20 point is too large. So you can see that working with a property report is kind of a trial and error process. And by then coming back and choosing 14, notice how all that information works in fine. Now there's another thing I'd like to do is I want to add some more listing images. When my client prints out this report, they're going to take this as an open house flyer. I want them to be able to see more than just one listing image. So down underneath the miscellaneous report elements, there's an item called listing image. I'm just going to drag it up, and it looks like it's in a good size for me. I'm going to select it. I'm going to come over. Oh, that's the listing map. Wrong item. Let me choose listing image. And so by moving this up, I'm going to drag it over, and it looks like it's the right size. So let me select it. And by selecting it, I'm going to make it center. I don't want to turn on the spinner. If I have spinners on every picture, to me it looks busy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on label, and now the label and description will display. As I move over to display, notice it says primary. Paragon will always default the image to primary. By using the drop-down, I can take the first secondary. That means that is the second picture that the listing agent added to this property. When they're looking at the input form, it is that second picture on the top row coming from the left. Again, I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to make that center, show the labels, and make it the secondary picture. I'm going to come over, choose the listing image again. Again, center it, label, and this is the third picture. I'm going to add a fourth image, select it, center, label, and fourth. Now, it doesn't look like I've got enough room to add a fifth, so I could do a couple things. One, I could make the picture smaller. That way I could put on additional pictures, or I could have just left it with the 4 pictures, and then I would have just evenly spaced that out a little bit better. But by doing this, let me move that down a little bit. Again, white space is important on the report for readability. Let me add one more image. Again, center, label, this is the 5th. And now it doesn't look like I can add a 6th, so let me just kind of eyeball this in and center this up. There we go. Now it looks like my pictures are not all in alignment, so I'm going to click, and notice how this one is down 667. I'm just going to do a left mouse click and select these other pictures. And by choosing 667, they all line up for me. Again, let me move this over. I got them all selected, so let me just select somewhere else and move that. And it now drops in. Make sure those are all 667. There we go. Again, I could space this out so it looks a little bit nicer. But with my work done, let me go ahead and click on Save. My layout has been saved. I can come back and look at other details. One last thing to show you, maybe I want to have for my branding, I want to have the office color. So by clicking on this box around, notice I have a rim that's orange in color. I can come over, and by hovering over the box next to where it says Tahoma, I can change the background color. So by clicking on that square, I can use my color slider to choose whatever item I'm looking for. Maybe I want that to be a blue. And as I do this, I can now choose what color blue I want. And notice I have the gradient tool, so I can choose any variation of the color I want. And that could be a color. I happen to know that the color blue that I like to use is 0000FF. I'm going to click on apply, and notice how that's now showing that color all the way through. Now, because I've selected that, I've got black on blue. That's not going to show up very nicely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the black square next to where I was just working at, and I'm going to just do a click on it. As I do that, I happen to know that the color I want is white, and I know that FFF gives me white, and I'm going to apply it. And what you'd want to do is know what color code you're looking for. That way you can have that same color code everywhere on your report. So if I had multiple banners that I was going to be using for that blue color, I'd want to make sure I copied down whatever that color was down in this area where it has the pound sign. And by doing that, I've now changed the look and feel and the layout of the information I have in this particular report. I'm going to click on save my work. Let me draw your attention to the toolbar. In the upper left-hand corner, I have a button that allows me to go to the display mode so I can see what this property report is going to look like with actual listing data in it. Now, if I wanted to, I could put in a particular MLS number to give me more information that I'm looking for. And I happen to know that I've got a listing, so I type in that MLS number and I hit enter. As I do that, that new property is now being displayed in this particular property report. So this gives me a good idea of how this property report is going to look. Let me just click on that same button. It takes me back to my design mode. I'm ready to continue on. So as you can see, having taken this report, the basic elements that are here, I've done some customizing, added some fields, made pictures larger. In some existing gaps, I added pictures, again, making this uniquely mine. Now, another thing you can do, let's go ahead and add another report. So I've done with this particular report. I'm going to click on Add. And by clicking on Add, I can now come over and using that same tool, I can now create a new report using a template inside Paragon. And by coming over to where it says Template, notice over on the right-hand side, we're going to get a display of what this report might look like. So here's the book report. And so this is going to be a multiple properties on a single page. What we would design is just this one element, and it's copied over to everything, to the other areas. Here is a property report, and this particular report is going to have multiple properties on, it's going to have one property on the page. By scrolling on down, we can see how there's lots of room for me to design. Notice how my office logo is already a part of this property design. I could also come over to a full color report. Again, by using my scroll tool, I can see that this already has some different containers or structure to it for me to go ahead and add my field preference section, or if I wanted to, hand place fields. So again, Paragon gives you a variety of different reports, templates that you can then utilize to help you see what kind of report you want to create. And with a lot of this structure already done, it makes it easy for you to go in and customize how you would like. I have a full report with pictures. And as I scroll on down, here you can see where there's the additional pictures at. Notice lots of room for you to come in and customize and put in whatever design elements you'd like to have. Then I have a thumbnail. A thumbnail typically has one picture on the left-hand side and listing information moving over to the right, and then you'd have multiples of these on the same page. You can come in and customize however you would like. Let me go ahead and choose this particular report, and having chosen it, notice it gives me how many across and how many down. I've already got it set for default, and notice my margins are predetermined, so I don't want to try changing those. I'm going to call this Gary. thumbnail. And I click on Save. With it saved, notice how it appears down below. And by clicking on the thumbnail name, I can come in and I can customize. Now, every time you open up a new report, you need to come down to Snap to Grid and uncheck the box. That way you don't have things jumping around on you. I'm going to come back to miscellaneous elements because that's where I'm going to do a lot of my report work. But before I do anything, I want to select this particular listing image. Notice the orange highlight or the rim around it. I want to move that in off the edge a little bit. So I'm going to come in, let's say 3 pixels from the top and 3 pixels from the left. My picture size is predetermined. I can, if I want, make it smaller, but I can't really make it any larger. And I do want to turn on the labels for it. And with this, center it up. I'm going to go ahead and save my work to this point. Where it says click here, I can now give it any kind of a title I want. So I'm going to call it Your New Home. Now that banner looks like it's outside that gray box behind, so I'm just going to do a left mouse click and hold it, slide that in. And if I want to use that shadow background, I can do that. If I want to make everything the same color, I can do that also. Maybe I want to use that same color I used before for my office color. So with that selected, notice the orange border. I can come in and type in my number. There's the color blue I want. Notice how it's a brighter blue. Click on Apply, and there it is. Now let's add some information to this report. I'm going to move down. I'm going to find Field Preference section. I'm going to move that up and drop it in. I like working with field preference sections because as I go to copy this from class to class, a field preference section will copy. If I do hand placement of fields, which I'll show you in just a minute, those do not copy over unless they're exactly the same name and field number. Let me put in the field preference section. Again, move it down to the side. Again, I can do a variety of things with this. Let me go ahead and save this. And now let me go ahead and double click on the left hand side. As I do that, I need to put in some basic information. So I'm going to put MLS number, class, type. Area means a lot to agents, but not to buyers. I'm going to choose asking price, address, city, and zip, and status. Let me go ahead and add those in. And let me go ahead and, here's a case where the label is different in the short label. Instead of asking price, it's just ask. Let me just come through and choose short label for everything. And save. Let's see how I'm doing. Looks like it could add some additional fields. Let me go ahead and make it bold. Let me go ahead and add bedrooms and baths to this. Number of bedrooms, bath, and let's see about square foot. So I'm just going to type in a couple characters. I want approximate square foot. Again, I'm going to use the short label, and let's save. It works. Over here on the side, I have an option of what I want to do. I'm going to double click, and in this case, I'm going to go out and find the remarks. I want to add the public remarks. As I do that, I'm going to show no label. I don't need to have a label when it's talking about the details. Again, I'm going to make it bold. That way my information, my data is normal. And I'm going to change it from an 11-point font to a 10-point. That way I get a little more information there. I'm going to save my work. Now let me show you about fields. It is possible if you want to hand place a field. I don't really recommend it because it takes a lot of work in order to line everything up for all the different fields you'd be dropping in. And when you get ready to do fields, here's a tip. Always come down and choose just the label or the data or label and data. So I'm going to choose text and data. I want to add virtual tour. So there I have it. I have branded and unbranded. I'm going to use the unbranded. And notice as I drag that over, it's going to drop in for me. I'm going to drop it in. I'm going to make that label bold. And on this, I don't need to say unbranded. I'm just going to customize that a little bit. And notice that I haven't used the whole width there. So I can change that width if I wanted. Let's make that just 100. And this is kind of the trial and error. 75 might be too narrow, so I'm going to make it 80. There we go. And then I'm going to take the other item, just move it right over next to it. That's at 222. Let's make those both at 220. And now they're moved up. And that is how you would then hand place a field. And so really quickly, I'm able to take this template and create my own property report. So again, I've saved it. Let me just do it again. We're going to see a green confirmation rectangle indicating that my report has been saved. And let's take a look at it. There's how it looks. If I want to put in my sample MLS number and hit enter, now I've got a better idea how that's going to work. Now, some of you are looking at this spilling over here on the side. When you go to print this out in PDF format, this will not have a spill over here. It'll all be up inside. Right now, we're displaying this in HTML mode, and HTML mode does not hold to the containers as nicely as PDF does. And there I've also got the virtual tour. Let me come back over, and you can see that it's very easy to come in and customize using a template. Let's come over and let's create a brand new report. And let's make this one just a blank page. Again, I'm going to activate it. I'm going to make it emailable. I'm not going to use a template, and I'm not going to use headers or footers. And for this particular report, I'm going to make this, let's say, 3 across by 3 down. So I'm going to put 9 to a page. I want to make it defaultable. I'm going to call this one Gary, 9 per 9 per page. And to get the max amount of space on the report, I'm going to make my margins 0.25 for top, left, and right, and the bottom 0.5. A lot of times printers need to have at least a ½ inch margin at the bottom in order for them to work properly. I'm going to go ahead and click on Save, and there's my report. By clicking on the name of the report like we've done before, I now have a totally blank page, and I can add whatever I want to this particular item. Again, because I've opened up a new report, come down to Snap to Grid, uncheck the box, and I'm going to come over to Miscellaneous Element. For the miscellaneous element, I do want to have a listing image. A picture of the property is very, very important. So I'm going to drag it up and put it there. So there's the image, center it, spinner with labels, and I'm going to make it a little bit larger. That's almost too large, so let me bring it back. Let me kind of center this image up here in the area, and then I'm going to use a field preference section. By using the field preference section, I can now quickly add information to this particular report by using the double click functionality that we've seen before. So I'm going to go ahead and double click. And for this, I want MLS number. I want the asking price. I'm going to want the address. And because I have limited space, I'm not going to put in maybe all the different details, but I do want to have status. I'm going to go out and find my bedrooms. Just do a double click on it, and baths. Again, you can just double click on the field with the left mouse click and drop it in. To this, I want to put in square foot, approximate square footage, and I also want to have subdivisions. And let's see where we're at to this point. For all of these, I'm going to choose the short label and save. So that's dropped in. That's looking pretty good. Let me go ahead and make that bold. So the label is bold and the data is normal. And even though I asked for short label, when you're in the design mode, it's going to give you the full name for the field, like asking price, where on the actual report, it'll display ask price. I can come in and add additional details if I wanted. Now, something else I want to show you is that you can drag and drop on different items. So right now I don't have room for a map. I do have a map link. So I can now come up, drop in an M for the map link, and there it is. Something else I want to do is a checkbox. By having the checkbox now, I can use this to help me filter for what property reports I'm sending out to my client, or I'm going to be printing or emailing, or when it comes to the filtering. Maybe I've got like a cloud CMA integration, so I can go ahead and drop that in. Try to space that out a little bit. Maybe down report below, I want to have some demographics about the neighborhood, so I'm going to use community reports. So again, from the side, I can pick and choose the different items that I'm looking for. Let me go ahead and take my field preference section, drag that down a little bit. I do want to come over and add my virtual tour. So again, in this case, I'm just going to use the data and search for virtual tour. There it is. I want the unbranded. Just going to drop it in. I'm going to make the field as wide as my picture, and I'm going to center it up. And by using just the data, if there's a virtual tour, it'll say virtual tour and it'll be a clickable link. If there is no virtual tour, nothing appears. But again, using the same kind of techniques that we've used before, we can then come in and customize the report. Let me go ahead and save it, and let's go view it. Again, I'm going to put in my particular number. Why does Paragon choose this? Well, it's just a random MLS number that Paragon selected. And so by knowing a particular number that you want to work with, you can then put in those details, the MLS number, and see a good display of that particular report. Okay, that's looking pretty good to me. So let me come back over. And one last thing I want to add to my design is I want to put a box around this. That way I can identify this particular listing from other listings. They don't run together. So coming back over to the miscellaneous elements, I'm going to come over, choose box. And with the box, I'm going to select it. I want this to be 2 pixels from the top, 2 pixels from the left. I'm just going to grab it over here on the side. Maybe for width, let's say maybe that's 200. Oops. 200 is not enough. Let's make that 250. That looks about right. Let me just drag this down now. Get my 2 arrowhead tool, bring that down near the bottom. There we go. Let me make it just a little taller here. There we go. Now, when the border for the box, notice it says border none. Come up, choose solid. It automatically chooses 1 pixel in black. Let me save it. With that in place, now let me come over and view this. And there it is. Again, you could do more dressing of this out if you would like, but at least you have an idea of how you can come in and create this particular report. Let me come back over to my results. In order to see these new reports I've created, I come back over to my search criteria screen and I click on search. Because what's happened is we're now going to update the list of reports with these new reports we've created. I come down to reports, and I come over to detail reports. As I move on down, there we can see the new report I've just created. So let me go ahead and click on it. That is the first one we created with the blue. And that's how it looks with listing data in it. For the one I just created from a blank page, let me close up details because that means 1 property per page. Come over to multi-ups and notice where I have Gary 9 per page. As I select it, there we go. So I can now scroll down, see those different properties, and notice with the checkbox, I can now go through and select which properties I want to display. And moving over to a second page, there I have it. And with these clickable links, I can now provide for my buyer a map of the particular property when they do a left mouse click on the map. And so that's how I can then go in and create my own report from scratch. And by using 2 pixels off from the top and the bottom, or from the top and the left, notice how it gives me a nice separation between my different properties on this particular page. Let me come back to my views, and let's do the next item. When it comes to copying the report over from class to class, I want to take my layout that I have for residential and move it into land. By moving over to land, notice that it's a blank page. Notice it says copy from copy class and the toolbar on the right-hand side. By clicking on copy class, Paragon's going to say, okay, here's the report. I select it and say next. And in this case, residential is the only thing that's built out, so I check it, click on copy. That is now working to bring over my report layout. So now in the land class, notice how everything copied over except for the fields in the field preference section. They weren't the same, and the virtual tour, because it had a different field number, it also did not come over. But notice how the basic template is here, making it very easy for me to go in and just double click in the field preference section, add the fields I want, maybe drag and drop back in the data for the virtual tour, and I've now completed my land class and move over to my other property classes. So that is how you can then come in and create the different property reports that you're working with. Here are the different things that we've talked about. How the simple customization, use the existing report, click on the Customize button, and simply change out the fields. But you can, if you want, copy an existing report, and as your own report, you can then customize it as you want. You have complete control of all items. Nothing is grayed out. You can use a template to create the different property reports you want, and you can also use a blank page. Now, the nice things about this is you get exactly what you want on the report. You can create it just for yourself, and you can then put in all the listing data you want. You can make it printable and emailable while you're in the design mode to get peer review. And then when you're ready, if you would like, you can copy it over to the office. You can use an existing report to brand it the way you want, or just simply tweak it as we did that first time around. Again, use the template to make your own report or a blank page. The report will have all the information that you're looking for, all those important fields and features, pictures, maps, and clickable icons. Again, here's just a short list of some of those icons that could be in your property report based on the different integrations your Paragon system has. The M and the D would typically email out, if you hyperlinked an email out to your or property out via email to your client, they could then see the map, and then they could see, if the D is present, only those documents that have been marked public. Again, you're in complete control of the look and feel of the color scheme of the report. You can make it emailable, and if you want, by checking that middle default box, you can make it your secondary double-click report that you see. Now, my recommendation is you get ready to create your own property report. You sketch out something, kind of an idea of what you'd like your property report to look like. It gives you a starting point, and as you begin designing, if you realize you've allocated space a little bit wrong in your draft, that's okay. You can then modify your design on the fly. And you can copy clone. You can create the first class like residential and then copy that on into your different classes. Or if you want, you can copy the entire report, and let's say you add a second page to it. So if you're dealing with one property per page, a detail report, maybe on the first page you only have a couple pictures, but on a second page, for a duplicate report, the first one you have it just as a single page. The second report could have 2 pages, which now has more of your pictures to display about the particular property. And I recommend you use the field preferences sections because it's easy to add fields to your design. Plus, as you copy from report to report or class to class, you then have that design element there, and you don't have to try to hand place every single bit of piece of information, both the label and the data, as you work within your report design. By using field preferences, it simplifies the design creation, the report creation, in that you can just double click and add the fields you want. By using the hand place field, you need to line up all of your labels and all of your data so they're in the right rows and the right columns in order for a good look. I personally design as much as possible using field preference sections. Please note, everyone's idea of the perfect report is different, so create what you think will best serve your clients. Once created, that property class or report can be copied, like residential to land or custom from one page to a 2-page report, utilizing that first page and then just add the second page. You can take that one page report, making the second page, adding more pictures, adding more comments, driving directions, more fields and features, whenever you want to have that right information. Now, there are 2 guides that are available for you to help you as you go to design the reports. The one on the left shows you how to copy the reports out of Paragon, like I did in copying a report, that custom brochure number 2. And this shows you how to do that. Plus, it then details out every single design element, what's its name and what it does. On the right-hand side, there's a custom report editor, and it shows the tips and tricks like I've talked to you about as we've gone through and designed this particular report. So this is the document that shows you how to copy a report, an existing report that's inside Paragon. And then, starting on page 4, we then highlight for you each of the different items, giving you callouts, talking about each one of those design elements inside the report editor. This is the second document that gives you tips and tricks as you're creating a report. Notice there's lots of information and screenshots talking about each of these different areas. And this will then help you as you're going through and creating your own particular property report, plus an idea of what a report might look like. and a place where you can go ahead and sketch out or make a rough draft of what you think that report should look like. We want to thank you for attending our webinar, Creating New Custom Listing Reports.